Welcome to the Binge List. I am your host, Paul Chapo. And wow, did you see that WANDAVISION episode? Did you see it? If you haven't seen it already, go ahead, turn this off, go see it right now. Looks like I'm going to be doing recaps every week now until this series ends because they just blew the doors off the multiverse. And what I mean by that is there was a big freaking cameo in this episode, and I will get to it in a minute. Just when this sitcom thing was about to wear out its welcome, they kind of saved the show. And they really saved the show last episode. Let's be realistic about this. But when I first started to watch this episode, they were doing the whole 80s sitcom thing, and it just, I don't know, it just hit a little bit too close to home because out of all the sitcoms, I really hate the 80s sitcoms with the dorky music. The one thing I can appreciate is there was one scene with Vision using Commodore 64 at work. My dad actually had one of those computers, so that was kind of cool. It was one of our first computers. Actually, our first computer was a VIC-20, but Commodore 64 took me back. And then there was this moment during that opening when it looked like we were watching Full House or something, that I had this crazy going down the rabbit hole moment where it looked like I was actually watching a grown-up Michelle Tanner. Michelle Tanner was a character in Full House. She was a little girl, the baby of the family. And oddly enough, she was played by Elizabeth Olsen's older sisters, Mary Kate Olsen and Ashley Olsen. And I'm talking about Elizabeth Olsen is, Wanda Maximoff in this series, but she looks just like her older sisters. She looks like a grown-up version of what Michelle Tanner would have been. So I was just taken out of the episode just for that fact, and the fact that I was looking at a grown-up Michelle Tanner. It's just weird, but it wasn't a grown-up Michelle Tanner. It was actually their sister, which is kind of weird too because she has some twins in her family. She's playing a twin in the Marvel Universe. See what I mean? It just, I don't know, it just threw me off a little bit. But then we cut to Monica Rambeau. Monica Rambeau is explaining what happened when she went through the energy field. That Wanda is pretty much using mind control on everybody in Westview. Now, that's something we already knew. I mean, it wasn't a big revelation, but what was a big revelation was the fact that she was able to figure out that her clothes were made up of the Kevlar vest that she was wearing when she got sucked into that energy field. And because of that, they were able to surmise that anything sent into the energy field would get changed to the equivalent of whatever era sitcom that Wanda was, at that moment, using for her setting. So they use that later in the episode, they get a 80s drone and they send it into the energy field, and they're able to get their first readings and their first view inside Westview because when they send the drone in, it doesn't get changed because it's, series appropriate. It's compatible with this 80s show that she's broadcasting at that very moment, and that is Wanda. So I thought that was kind of clever. The fact that Vision is now, he is starting to realize that something is amiss. I mean, we saw a little bit of that the third episode and the fourth episode, but even more now. He knows something wrong, but he just can't put his finger on it. And then, of course, we find out from the director of S.W.O.R.D. that his body was actually taken by Wanda Maximoff 9 days ago. So now we have a pretty good timeline of what happened. Wanda actually took Vision's body, came to this neighborhood, and took it over. And it happened within the last 9 days. So, we have this timeline. We can actually break down what she knew and when she knew it. So apparently And we see this later in the episode because she actually comes up after the drone is sent in. She actually comes out of the energy field and threatens Sword to leave her alone, that she has everything she's always wanted and that they better not interfere. And it was a really badass scene because they have a whole platoon of soldiers pointing weapons at her, and she's able to mind control all of them like it was nothing. I thought that was a really cool scene. I really enjoyed it. So there was a lot of stuff like that in this episode, but then it got even better. But before I get into the cameo that has changed everything, let me just say that there's going to be some kind of conflict. Vision he knows he's part of a simulation, but he doesn't remember his past. He doesn't remember anything prior to being in Westview. He doesn't remember his whole history of Ultron and what happened during the snap with Thanos killing him to get the Mind Stone. He doesn't remember any of that, but he is the one character inside the simulation that has a power that's remarkably similar to what Wanda has. Of course, it's not exactly the same, but he can challenge her. There was a whole scene where they were about to even battle, it looked like. So there was a lot of stuff like that. Suffice to say, he uses his power to actually uncloud one of the characters' minds in the simulation, and the guy actually comes out of it, and he's begging Vision to help him. He's like, it's hurting me, whatever Wanda's doing to his brain to make him compliant. So there was a lot of interesting things, but I definitely see this coming to a head very soon. And also, the only question I have right now is what her children are, because we see her children, they're being aged up really fast. They go from being like toddlers to being 10 years old. And, probably by the next episode or whatever her sitcom will be, they'll probably be teenagers or even adults. So I'm not sure, are they real? They can't be real because real people cannot age up like that. If anything, if I had to make a bet about who was fake and who was real, for one thing, we know Vision is dead. So there's a certain amount of reanimation going on. We know that his body is actually in this simulation, so she's got to be like supplying him power, the power that he was harnessing from that Mind Stone. So we know part of him is, and maybe could be brought back through her power. But as I've said before, I don't really know where the children stand right now. I don't know if she's powerful enough to actually do what she's been doing with these kids, which is make them older. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that later. Here's the big cameo, though. And there was indication throughout this whole episode that they were going to get some outside help. And I thought that it was going to be some kind of scientist, maybe, just maybe, it could possibly be Doctor Strange, because I think when you think of Avengers that could challenge Wanda, Doctor Strange is definitely up there. They even mentioned Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is powerful, but she can't manipulate time and space, I don't think. She's more like a Superman type character. So I wasn't totally sure, but when Wanda opens the door and she's surprised at whoever's on the other side, and they don't really show his face right away. They show the back of his head. The guy has this gray hair, and I was just like, is that Doctor Strange? But he didn't have a full head of silvery white hair. And then it dawned on me, it's Quicksilver. Of course you would bring back Quicksilver. But then they did us one better. And like I said, if you haven't watched this episode already, you're doing yourself a disservice if I get to ruin this for you. It was Evan Peters. You're probably looking at me like, Evan Peters? She brought Quicksilver back, but it's not the Quicksilver we know, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. No, it's the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. In fact, they're watching the broadcast from outside the simulation. That even they say she recast her brother. And I don't know at this point whether it was actually a recasting. Maybe, perhaps, maybe Wanda was able to reach into the multiverse and pull him out of this parallel universe where those 20th Century Fox films ran parallel to the MCU. So that's the only explanation I can come up with. Maybe they're just having fun with this recasting. Maybe he's going to be Quicksilver at this point forward. I mean, they have recast a lot of actors already in this series. Like I've mentioned in the past, they took Edward Norton and replaced him with Mark Ruffalo. They replaced War Machine with Don Cheadle. I forget the guy's name who Terrence Howard. They replaced Terrence Howard. So they've done this before, but it's really feels like they're going to dabble in the multiverse because, and here's the thing, we already know that Alfred Molina, at the very least, is going to be in the next Spider-Man film. There's already evidence. I think one of the actors, Zendaya, the actor playing MJ, she has already said she had fun working with Alfred Molina. So we already know they're doing some kind of multiverse. Now, how far they're going to go with that, whether Andrew Garfield's going to be it and Tobey Maguire's going to be in it, I don't know. But it seems fairly certain that that's where they're going at this point. It would be just be a great way of making all these other Spider-Mans and all these X-Men movies irrelevant again and make them part of the canon so that we could have these, maybe even have these actors revisit these characters in the MCU. So I just think it's mind-blowing what they could do if this is indeed what they're trying to do. But it was a really quick cameo. The episode pretty much ended right after they hug. I was just left with more questions than answers at this point. So hopefully we won't have to wait too long to find out. But my suspicion is, yes, they are going to definitely do the multiverse, and it's going to be awesome from here on out. My hope is that if they bring anybody through the multiverse, it would have to be Wolverine. That's right. Hugh Jackman. If you're going to bring back anybody, Hugh Jackman, maybe even, Professor X, Patrick Stewart. Hey, there's a bunch of people I feel like that did such a great job in the X-Men movies that they can't be replaced. And those are at least two characters who I really wish they wouldn't have to recast. Even though, I don't know, Patrick Stewart is getting up there in age, and Hugh Jackman for that matter. But we will see. We will see, guys. This is a great time to be a Marvel fan, that's for sure. And I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. So, yeah, come back next week where I will recap whatever happens in the next episode. But that's all I have for today. I'd like to thank my subscribers and encourage you. Hit that subscribe button. Let's discuss this. Give me a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Did I miss anything about this episode that you thought I should mention? Let me know down in the comments. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.